Okay, we will now begin our meeting. I'm sorry for the delay. This is our regular Bountiful City Council meeting, February 25th, 2025, and we will begin with a Pledge of Allegiance led by Lily Thorne.
Like right now? Okay. Please stand. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much, Lily. She came for her class at school to participate tonight and led us in the Pledge of Allegiance. So thank you so much for going above and beyond. And thank you to Alex Densley for now giving us our opening prayer or thought.
Henry's going to follow, apparently. So, our Father in heaven, we are appreciative that we live in a country in which we are able to meet and to have the freedoms that we enjoy. We are grateful for a council and a democracy in which we can have these discussions and be able to be guided. Father, thank you for the support that you provide us with, and as we have our meetings today and in the future, please guide us that we may do what is best for the citizens of this city. And we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Henry. We will now begin our public comment period. If you have a comment you'd like to make, please come and state your name and where you live. You have 2 minutes.
Gotta say something. Gary Davis, 2814 South, 500 West here in Bountiful. Looking through the Power Department's meeting notes and the latest information that Mr. Johnson's staff has put out, and I'm a little concerned. I don't know if this is a city council issue, a legal issue, or planning commission, but it looks like some sort of resolution or something needs to be established to prohibit squirrels from within 50 feet of energized equipment. It's getting to be a problem. That's all I got.
Thank you. Any other public comment tonight? Seeing none, we will move to consider approval of the minutes of the previous meetings held January 9th, 10th, and February 11th.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes for January 9th, 10th, and February 11th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Those minutes are approved. And now we will move to council reports. We excuse Councilman Higginson tonight. And Councilman Murray, do you have a report?
Nothing to report, but just express best wishes and a speedy recovery to Councilman Higginson.
Thank you. Councilwoman Price-Hewish.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have a brief report about the Bountiful City Youth Council. Just a little shout out to those amazing kids. Last week, they had an event at the Bountiful Food Pantry, and there were close to 20 kids there who spent a couple of hours helping organize shelves and pack pantry packs. And that was the maximum number that the food pantry would allow to come in at that given time. Otherwise, there would have been even more kids showing up. They're exceptional, and grateful to have the opportunity to rub shoulders with them. They will also be attending a leadership conference in the next couple of weeks up at Utah State, and I'll be happy to help accompany them up there with our advisor, John Cook. And so that's a report from the Bountiful City Youth Council.
Thank you so much. Just by way of report. I just talked to a resident, Zoe Budge, and she was so complimentary of the building department here. She sent an email at the time, which is so appreciated because a lot of times we hear when there's problems, but we don't hear about the good. And so I just appreciated, Zoe, your telling me about Dawn and Terry and how helpful they were to you. She had a house burned down and she was building a house, and the inspectors were very helpful. And so anyway, I just appreciate, there are a lot of good things happening every day and we don't always hear about it. So thank you for telling me about that. Councilwoman Child, do you have a report tonight?
I have nothing to report. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilwoman Bradshaw.
I feel like I covered it during our legislative discussion with our legislative friends.
Councilwoman Bradshaw's day job is at the legislature, and we're knee-deep, eyeball-deep in the session, and we really appreciate you looking out for the city's interests as well as everything that you're paying attention to up there. So we're glad it's amazing you're even here. So thank you for what you're doing there on top of all your other duties. Okay, we will now consider approval of expenditures greater than $1,000 paid February 5th and 12th.
I'll make a motion to approve the expenditures greater than 1,000 paid on February 5th and 12th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. And now I am grateful that tonight we have Matthew Myers here. He is here in the back. Do you mind just standing up so we can see you? And really grateful too that Alan Johnson, our power department director, is here with us. And so we are pleased to ask the council to approve the appointment of Matt Myers to the Power Commission. I've gotten to know Matt a little bit with my time at the South Davis Sewer District on the board there, and he is not only qualified as an engineer, but really has some wonderful expertise that he brings to the table, and will be such a great asset, such a great person to work with on our commission. So I'm really grateful that he's willing to serve in this capacity, and just wanted to ask the council to appoint Mr. Myers to the Power Commission. Any questions for Matt or any questions in general?
Mayor, if I
Sure,
may.
please.
I just want to make a point that we did open this application process to the public, and I think that is a really important thing that we did here as a city, and there were multiple applicants. And so I am really excited. I work on the Power Commission. I'm a member, I represent the City Council, so I'm looking forward to getting to know you. And with that, I would be happy to make a motion that we approve the appointment of Matt Myers to the Power Commission.
Mayor, I'm happy to second. I've also gotten to know Matt thanks to my day job and think he would be a great addition. I think his civil engineering background and his work with a similar type utility that provides critical services that perspective will be helpful on our Power Commission.
Excellent. Thank you so much. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion is approved. Thank you so much for being willing to serve. Really appreciate that. Okay, we'll now move to consider approval of ordinance number 2025-05 with Ms. Amber Corbridge.
Mayor Harris, I just wanted, no, Amber will present this item,
Okay,
but I just wanted to provide a quick overview of what we're doing.
okay.
This is the omnibus land use code text amendment. The word omnibus is derived from Latin and means to, for, by, or with, from everything. We use this term in law and in land use to cover a lot of different changes that need to be made to the code for reasons that provide order accuracy and clarifications. We're not really dealing with, or we're not focusing on any policy changes, but our codes are always a reaction from previous councils and previous development patterns. And many times we find contradictions, many times we find some issues that need to be cleaned up. We do this quite often. I mean, we haven't done it probably in the last 2 to 3 years, but we used to do it annually. So we'd like to continue this practice. As this is a land use code text amendment, the Planning Commission did review these changes, and they voted on February 4th and forwarded a positive recommendation. They also held a public hearing. It was a 6-0 vote. There are 11 sections, and Amber's gonna provide quick overview of all of these different sections.
Okay, and with
Excellent.
that, I hope you're okay that we just take each section at a time and just have a consensus to each one. Just
Sounds
so
good.
that it's not overwhelming at the end.
Thank you.
So the first section, we've updated language in the land use code, removing administrative committee as the approval/review body for certain types of variances, which do follow our practice already. So any questions or concerns about this section? Okay. Moving on. Section 2. This is where a section where we created an inactive application deadline. We believe this was necessary to be able to move applications forward. So any questions about section 2?
So that's for any application,
Yes,
yeah,
any
Okay.
land use application.
land use, yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay,
Moving on to 3, if everyone's okay with that.
Mhm.
We've updated our residential foothill zone exceptions to match the state code. So that's just clearing that up in section 3. Also clarifying the fencing requirements for residential parking. Any questions there?
I've got a question. Are we going to be going through this or just hitting these
I'm hitting them now,
as
so
they
if,
appear on page 25 and 26?
yes, we're just going through each section, and if you have comments or questions, we can slow it down for a pause and cover that in each
You-
section.
did you have any questions about anything so far?
I do about the residential,
Okay.
foothill.
Okay.
Okay.
But if we're covering it again, like,
Well,
No,
let's
no,
do it now.
It's the
Yeah.
time, yeah, section 3 is
Mhm.
where we're at, right? So it's the time to ask if you have questions about that.
in all honesty, this is like 40 pages, so I'm having a hard time finding this
Okay, this is
part
line,
in the main text.
okay, this will be line 513, Exhibit C is where it starts for section 3.
Page 44.
Okay.
Yes, 44.
I did have a question about this. I just was wondering if we could have a tiny conversation about this, because I was wondering, is this a special carve-out for the RF zone, subzone, that could ultimately allow for variances at the discretion of the planning department? Do you understand where I'm coming from on this? Okay. Okay, it says the land use authority may, unless expressly stated, to the contrary, grant a reasonable use exception to the provisions of the chapter to implement its purposes by modifying the requirements in the RF zone. Those are lines 528 through 531.
Yep.
And so it's taken out city council and put in land use authority. So are we meaning by land use authority? I want to define that a little bit more.
Sure. The reason why we are taking out city council is because there's a disconnect with what the state did, in that the state removed the council, the legislative body, from being the land use authority for 1 and 2 family dwelling subdivisions.
And
And
townhomes.
unfortunately, when we amended that code, one 18 months ago, we didn't catch this provision. This should have been added to that change 18 months ago when we updated our code to match the new requirement from state code. So the disconnect is that now the Planning Commission is the reviewer or the land use authority of subdivisions for 1 and 2 family dwellings. So we shouldn't have a waiver of requirement for a body that's not involved in the process. So instead of putting the word the Planning Commission, we chose to use the word the land use authority should the legislature once again in the future change who that designation is. Let's just say that they delegate that to staff. Just for example, I'm not saying, we're not proposing that, but if they do delegate that to staff or even the planning director, we already have prepared language that matches that land use authority for that approval.
Whoever is the land use.
Whoever is the
authority.
approver. So we should have caught this 18 months ago, a year. We missed it. We're just trying to fix it right now. That's all we're trying to do with that change.
Okay, so, I mean, just to rephrase what you're saying, this is a requirement of the legislature that the land use authority be the planning commission of these decisions. I mean, for residential.
Correct.
And so this is a catch because it still says city council.
Exactly.
And you don't see that this in any way then creates any kind of special carve-out?
No, not at all.
Okay. That's just my main concern there, that in some way this could lead to an erosion of our foothills. But I'm willing to take this as a do not worry, all is well. Okay.
Any other questions?
Let's move on.
Yeah. Any other questions on section 3?
Okay.
Okay.
All right, section 4 covers, let's see, clarification of how to measure a structure maximum height in the commercial zone. Any questions for that one?
So if a structure's height could be something like a
So it used,
gazebo?
so what it had in the code before was 2 different ways to measure a building height, or it was 45 feet or
3
3
stories.
stories. So we just simplified it and just crossed out the 3 stories. So now it's just the height that we
Okay.
look at.
So this has nothing to do with the gazebo issue?
No.
No, this is, yeah.
This is in the
separate.
commercial zone.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
So
Okay.
I actually did have a question about this, because I was looking like, what is a typical 3-story commercial building? And from what I could find, they're typically between 30 and 40 feet. And do we have any 4-story commercial buildings right now that would fit within this height? Well, first of all, anywhere in the city.
I mean, in the mixed-use zone, there are some.
Right, in the
but
mixed
commercially
use, but in the
zoned-
commercial zone?
We may have some office buildings that might be in this category. This change, wasn't intended to alleviate or prohibit any building throughout the town. We just don't like having the dual standards in that a 45-foot provision is simple. We know exactly how to measure it. 3 stories might get a little complicated if there's a shift in the building. And it's, in my experience, it's not a methodology of measuring height.
Thanks. Any
Okay.
other questions on that one?
All right, let's move on to section 5. This is clarifying the downtown zone setback requirement for lots facing Main Street. Any questions or comments?
Looks good.
I have a question.
Okay.
I'm sorry, but I have a lot of questions. This language that's added on lines 599 through 601, why did we feel the need to add this language?
So if you'll look, we've added the same language that you see in line 2. Line 591, number 2. It says, along Main Street, any building shall be located within 10 feet of the street property line. We've found that there are some corner lots that face Main Street, so they also need that clarification language for that property setback. So that wasn't covered, so we added it. So that any building facing Main Street on a corner would also need to have that same setback requirement along Main.
All right, thanks.
Thanks.
Okay, section 6. This is the updates for access requirements for single-family dwellings to match the master streets plan. We just simply changed the wording so that we got rid of, was it arterial? Yeah, and made it major. Any questions?
Okay, yes, we
Okay.
do.
This happens in a number of places, changing arterial to major. And I was just wondering, if somebody were looking at the code, is there somewhere in the code where we define major street? So they would be able to say, oh, I can go back and look at this definition, because there are a lot of places where it talks about being able to back out from a residential property onto a major street. And what does that mean?
We
Okay.
have, if you don't mind, maybe Lloyd could.
Yeah. Lloyd?
So our master street plan has a series of categories of streets. Among those is not included the word arterial. We have major, minors, and collectors. So this was just an effort to match those two documents up. Yep.
Okay, moving on, let's see, we've got section, we're on 7 now. Updates with unnecessary language used in the single-family residential zone. Any questions about that section? That's mostly in the use table that you'll see on page 50. It's just cleaning up a lot of the language. Any comments or questions?
That looks
Okay.
good.
All right, moving on to section 8. This is updates to the unnecessary language used in the commercial zone. That's on starting page 52. Any questions or comments?
This one was shaded in gray in that it simply was there to show you the recent changes that council enacted. That's why it's not red, it's gray, it's more of a,
It was pending.
it was
Yeah.
pending when we started this with the
Yes.
planning commission, so we wanted to be fully transparent, so we showed it to you here.
Thank you.
Okay,
Looks good.
moving on, section 9. This is updates to language in the downtown zone. Any questions there?
Seems straightforward.
Okay, section 10, this is updates recently adopted, changes regarding beauty services and tattoos in the mixed-use zone. So we clarified that in the mixed-use zone. That wasn't part of the amendment, but
Correct.
that's why we added it to this omnibus.
Do
And
you have a question?
anything on that?
I do have a question on that one.
Okay,
So line 795 says tattoo parlors, and then the update, body art establishments. And then 797 says body piercing earrings permitted. I was wondering if that is one category?
so that was already in the code. And so, I mean, that is part of body art establishments, so I don't know if we need both of them. We didn't really catch that, so
We didn't.
maybe we could omit it since it is covered in the definitions for body art establishments, so,
Good catch.
yeah.
We did not catch that. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? And finally, section 11, we've updated, let's see, clarification to the sign code regarding sign permit approval bodies. Any comments or questions on that?
I had a question actually about this, and maybe I'm not understanding. But on page So at the bottom of page 60, it says the planning department will have the function, duty, and power to approve, disapprove, or approve a sign permit. But page 34, where we're looking at the different approval and review bodies, it looks as though city council is the final approving body for commercial pole, monument, and new developments under the sign approval.
Right, I
So.
see that. So that would need to be amended as well.
Yeah, yeah, no, this is a,
We threw this in last minute and didn't catch it in our table
in
on
this.
34.
This was me. Yeah, I own this one. We thought that we were trying to fix a D on page 60 in that the planning department has handled for quite a long time all sign permits, but it clearly indicates for commercial pole monument, new development, it's council the final authority. So we did add it last minute. It did get reviewed by the commission. My recommendation is that we need to take a deeper dive on this one. I would recommend not including section 11.
Okay, thanks for pointing that out. Okay, so we'll,
I'm
so in our
responsible.
motion, maybe we can approve it all except for the last piece. Any other questions on that one?
Okay, so that concludes all the sections that we've updated. I'm hearing that we do need to make that small change for section 10 to get rid of the body piercing use, right? Okay.
Okay, any other questions, or are you ready for a motion, council?
Sorry.
Mayor, before we make a motion, can
Sure.
we just clarify so the minutes say, so on line 795, we are striking the amendment / body art establishments from the,
No, 797.
sorry, 797?
Yeah, because it says body,
So we're striking 797, or are we striking 795?
You need to strike 797 because 795 also includes tattoo parlors as a prohibited use. So it's a duplicate use.
We're not just striking the red part on 795, we're striking what is already in the code in 797.
Yeah.
All right, is that clear, Miranda? Okay, thank you.
Thanks for the clarification. Any other questions or comments on this?
I do,
go ahead, go ahead.
I have another question, just because I'm not really familiar with the language. I understand final, no, recommend. But on page 33, there, at the bottom, there are a couple of things that the approval review designation says as designated. And I was wondering if you could just kind of help explain, maybe this is self-explanatory to others, but where it says the item is alteration and modification of non-compliant site or structure, and then the one below it, where it says the approval review bodies, and it says as designated or all others. But I was wondering, where do we know what the designation is then? Here.
Do you want that, or do you want me to take it?
I don't have an answer.
So in the code, it talks about how the administrative committee could assign
Oh, there you go.
the planning director to review this item. So the approval body can reassign it, or as designated, reassign it to either staff or administrative committee on those items.
So where it says all others,
So-
that body has the ability to delegate. So on that first one, administrative committee could say, no, we want staff. Or
Yeah.
on the others, planning commission could defer to
Exactly.
the administrative committee. Okay, got it.
Thank you. Good questions. Anything else, council? I'll entertain a motion.
So, as we get ready to do this, since we'll be approving a draft ordinance, it feels like we need to modify that draft ordinance to remove section 11?
Right? Someone,
So
is someone interested in making a motion to that effect?
So
I'm,
I'm happy to make a motion. I just want to make sure that I don't mess this up for our city attorney. Because we've looked at it in the actual text, but the ordinance is, this simple 2.5-page document. So as long as we have updated in the section where we had the piercings, which I believe was 10 in the document, are you okay that we don't need to specify that in the change to the ordinance resolution? Okay. So, Mayor, I'd make a motion that we approve draft ordinance 2025-05 with an amendment that we strike section 11 from inclusion in the draft ordinance.
second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, excellent. Thank you for your help. Thank you. Okay, we'll move now to our next item, which is Mr. Alan Johnson, our Power Department Director, to consider approval of the purchase of an air handler.
Yes, Mayor and Council, it's great to be here tonight to discuss a couple of these items that we've got. This first item we have is an air handler, and this is basically a sort of an air conditioner unit for our small generating unit that was put in 2001. And what it does is it keeps the building cool and there are closure around it and keeps the equipment and stuff cool. As we have started to work on getting ready for our summer run, we've got in and realized that this air handler was rusted more through the winter and last fall than we'd anticipated. And it became apparent that in order to fix it was going to cost us more than it was to replace it. We've worked with climate control for a while, and they've gone back through and done a lot of changes. This current unit is tucked back in between. We'll have to have a crane to lift the old unit out and put the new unit in, modify the duct work and everything in order to hook this back up. So it would be the Power Commission staff's recommendation that we award to climate controls for the price of $48,055 for the total cost to install this unit and supply the new equipment. Again, this air handler was put in 2001 when the unit was put in. I anticipate that this same unit with the maintenance will go another 20 years or so, so we'll maybe looking at a whole bunch of other stuff by the time we need to change this again. But it will allow us to operate through the summer months when these units need to be run, so.
Excellent, thank you. Any questions on this?
Oh, I'll make a motion to approve the purchase and installation of the air handler from Climate Control for $48,055.
Second.
Seconded by Councilwoman Price Hewish. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thanks. And the next item, Alan?
The next item we have is a Turner 46,000 volt transmission switch. And what this switch is used to isolate areas, and this particular switch that we need to replace is a switch that's down by Air Products. And on these switches, because it's 46,000 volts, from time to time we have to operate them when they are energized. We don't do it under load, but just under energized. And what ends up happening with that voltage, it'll actually cause a current and an arc. So they got like a flipping mechanism where it'll hold it together like a spring, and then it flips away and breaks the arc. This current switch that we've got, the arcing device has wore out on the switch, and we need to have this switch installed as we start moving into this fall to work on the Northwest substation, and so how we isolate it to work on it. We currently have a switch in stock, and we always do as these fail, because as you notice, the 40-week delivery time on this is, you've got to have it quicker than that. So we will currently be putting the new switch in the next few weeks into the line. and then we'd like to order another one to put into inventory to have in place for when we do it. These switches do not go bad very often. However, like I say, there are a number of them been around for a while. As we discussed this morning, they was concerned whether one switch would be enough. As we pointed out, if we were gonna rebuild a line, we would order new switches to put up. This is just to carry it along, so we typically can replace one switch, wait the year to get another one, and we're not in critical situations. So, like I say, we did go out to bid, and we did send it out to 3 suppliers. We only did get 2 bids, and you'll notice the pricing come in the same, and the difference was the delivery. So we chose to go with Annixter Wesco for the Turner switch for $26,638. And again, this item will be placed into inventory until we need it.
Great. Thank
Mayor,
you. Yes.
Make a motion to approve.
Okay.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. Thank you. On the next item, Alan.
The last item is one that I feel like I'm here every month talking about transformers. But this is a particular transformer that we only have maybe a dozen transformers on our system of this variety. Particularly on this case, this transformer that we have already used, so we have none in inventory at this point, was, I believe it's Jake's Tire Pro. Somebody had backed into it, I don't know who did it, but it was causing it to leak and we had to replace it. And this is what they call a Delta system. Most of our new systems are all Ys, and I could get into a whole discussion, but I'm just saying there's only about maybe 8 or 10 of these on our system, but we still have to have them there as we go. Was what we found is when we went to try and get this one replaced, as you see the timing on it, we was only able to get 2 bids. It was hard to even get people to make it, so that we wanted to get 2 transformers to bring back into inventory, and you see they're 40, 45-week deliveries, so we're talking almost a year to get it back in. So hopefully we don't have any other issues or whatever. We will not anticipate new homes or new businesses, will not typically use this transformer. But we use it on several businesses. We use it on some of our ball lights. I mean, it is used on the system. So it would be the Power Commission staff's recommendation that we award to Annixter Power Systems for the 2 transformers, the GE Prolec for $27,748. And again, these 2 transformers, when they come in, will be placed into inventory again until we do need them, so.
There's a big price difference between those two.
What's that?
There's a really big price difference between the two. I mean, there's a huge difference in lead time, but it's interesting that the one that's so much higher also has the longer lead time. Is there any particular reason why the Western Electric price is so much higher?
Because this is not, I'll call it the typical voltage that most of them are coming out. They have to rethink what they're doing, and not, like I say, we was only able to get 2 bids, and obviously the second bid from Western Electric was willing to do it, but that was a fairly more money. But again, like I say, because we do have to have it, we need them. And like I say, typically when we go out for transformers, we can get multiple bids, and we had to work really hard to even get 2 bids on this transformer, so.
I guess we're really lucky then that Annixter is the low bid by a lot, since
That's right. Yeah, thank you. That's right. Any other questions for Alan?
Mayor, I'd be happy to make a motion that we approve the purchase of the transformer at the stated price from Annixter Power Solutions.
Second.
All in favor?
I
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. Thank you.
Thank you
Thank you very much for
Appreciate
being
it.
here. Okay, now we'll turn the time back over to you, Francisco Astorga, to consider approval for ordinance number 2025-06.
Thank you, Mayor. The Planning Commission reviewed this item during their meeting that was held on Tuesday, February 4th, where they reviewed the item and held a public hearing. And this is the exact same language that we looked at during the January 14th, 2025 work session not in conjunction, but in a response from the City Council November 12th, 2024, work session that we had. This is a city council, city-initiated land use code text amendment, which affects paid parking spaces within the single-family residential zone. So the language, I do apologize, it wasn't the exact same language. We did have a small tweak that came from the city engineer based on your discussion, and Lloyd was able to add his language regarding specific rock size that was directed by you during that last meeting. However, this language here was the exact same language that was presented with the Planning Commission. The commission did not change this language at all. So you should be familiar with it. I'll be more than happy to go over any of it. It does have 5 different sections as the landscaping. It's affected by this ordinance, as well as the site triangle and some of the many other. There's 5 sections that we hit. We did also clean up this section of the code. We didn't add it to the omnibus amendment, as we already were handling this. We do recommend that, and everything is identified in the pretty picture on page 69 that shows that darker gray, that shows areas within a single-family dwelling lot where the new gravel parking area could be allocated, as long as it is divided or separated from any landscaping, including xeriscaping. We followed that the direction that you provided to us in the past, that have a 10-foot buffer from that front property line. So this is the exact same model, SketchUp model that we showed you during the work sessions. I'll be more than happy to answer any questions regarding the proposed ordinance affecting the permeable parking surfaces areas.
Any questions on that, council?
Question on line 252, that section 5 of access requirements. So in that section, when that drive is no longer used or is abandoned, and then it says it's going to be replaced with standard curb, does the city just come in and put that in? Is it at the cost of the city, or is the homeowner now required to pay to have that?
Yeah, we made this amendment, and I apologize, there's a typo with that G. We should have caught that on that, so I want to point that out, so when we fix it. We made this change, I want to say, Lloyd, back in 2020 is when we added this. We didn't put a time frame, so we thought it would be appropriate that when we cleaned up this code, as implied earlier by me, we would add a time frame, and we find that 1 year is appropriate. This would be the property owner's responsibility.
So then the city I mean, the wording's good, but it's like, at what point does the city say, we've been watching your house, you're no longer using this? And is that when the city gives the homeowner notice that you've determined that that's no longer used?
Yeah, so at the Planning and Engineering Office, we have really good access to aerial photography that has stamped dates. If we're able to find evidence, hey, you've had it for over 5 years, we're able to, move quicker, faster than that, if that photograph can reveal that. But it allows us, or more so the engineering department, the opportunity to say, you're no longer using that access, you need to remove it. It gives us a little bit more teeth.
As I looked at this, I didn't feel really super comfortable with the 1 year non-use time frame. It seemed really quick, and we do have a number of these just everywhere, all over the city. And I've seen times when people have not used them, and then they have kind of begun using them and added, some, or started using the parking area that might be on the opposite side of their home from where the driveway is, where the curb cut is. To me, the 1 year seems a little onerous, and I'm wondering if anyone else here today would consider the removal of that language. Because to me, I think it's, in a city like ours where we have many, many, many of these all over the city, and people use them, they may be dormant for a while, then they may start to use them again. People are buying homes where these are there. It seems like a potentially a really big burdensome cost to ask all of our homeowners who are not currently using them or haven't for a year's time period to then kind of have this affirmative requirement to within a year go and change the curbing. So I would wonder what my colleagues would think about that.
Sure. Lloyd, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I do. So the purpose of this was not intended to be punitive for people who use those occasionally, but there are obvious places where drive approaches have been built and have not been used in a long, long time. And the general purpose of having a drive approach is to provide access. It's usually for parking or to lead to a garage, and in those cases, those accesses need to be paved appropriately, right? They need to have a hard surface. Over time, when homes are rebuilt on properties, oftentimes the garage is built in a different location, and so a new drive approach needs to be built, and it may render the previous location impractical for use, and so that's the intent.
Is it, do you expect this to be kind of like code enforcement, where if there's a complaint, then you would be pursuing something, but otherwise you wouldn't necessarily be out pursuing removal of these kind of driveway, these kind of approaches?
Yeah, and they often invite, when they're there, they invite for sometimes when they get used, to drive over that park strip where it might be gravel, which is not allowed unless it's zero escape, or they just drive over the grass. So we found that, at least back in 2020, that it was a good idea to add the language. If we remove the 1 year, we could move on with code enforcement with a lesser amount of time. We could say, you're out of compliance right now. So we thought that the 1 year was a way to balance and provide some sort of protection to provide that property owner some time to remove it as well. So it's a double-edged sword in putting a specific time frame, or not having one, in that prosecution could say, yeah, they're out of compliance.
That makes sense. Council members, what are your thoughts on that?
My thought is to leave the language how it is without the 1 year. I think it's really hard to, look at this and say, when is something abandoned, when is it not abandoned? And I agree with you, Lloyd. There are some that are obvious, that, tons of weeds. You can tell it's not been used for a long, long time. But I think the 1 year, I don't know. I think, to me, it might actually give, could give way to punitive, not code enforcement on the city's side, but punitive action between neighbors, looking to kind of tattle, rat out. I don't know. I guess for me, I just think it's not necessary, but
So whether or not we
Quote,
changed,
Richard, that's just me.
whether or not we changed the 1 year, at any point, people could complain with a code enforcement complaint, right? If there are weeds, et cetera.
They could, and then we would follow our typical process where we say, hey, you have 2 weeks to fix it. They don't fix it, hey, you have another 2 weeks to fix it. They don't fix it, hey, Mr. Aaron Nielsen, we're going to turn over the case over to you.
Did you have another thought or any other discussion from council on this?
I guess just one final thing in response to that. I think without the 1 year timeline, people often, I just think without the 1 year time frame, people have an opportunity to bring in like context to what is happening on their property, and maybe they're, saving money for a project, for a home improvement that might involve or include that. So I just think it allows for potentially more flexibility and allows that additional context of a homeowner to actually say, this is what I'm planning on, I'm saving money, or I'm, anticipate something in the future that will utilize this.
So does it seem that the intent is that there would be more leniency, Lloyd, when you look at what this does?
I don't necessarily have a problem with removing the 1 year time frame. Again, my intent with this language is to identify those accesses that are no longer used. And I would cite an example of a home that's been vacant for quite a while by Viewmont High, and they came in for a remodel permit. And as we reviewed their plan, we noticed that they had made changes to their garage, and they had a circular driveway. But so the change in closing their garage eliminated the need for a drive approach on that side of the lot. They had a carport on the other side that they were going to use as their primary parking for their vehicle. And so that's a good example to me of a place where we could say, hey, you really aren't going to be using this drive approach. We need to replace it with curb and gutter. And having the opportunity to approach the property owner or the applicant for the project and understand what is your use, and can we find some evidence that supports that? Is it really necessary? That's really the purpose.
Do you have any other context you wanted to share, Gary, on this?
Just that the 1 year provision, it's not, that's not how long it has to be abandoned before it's deemed non-compliant. This would be after it's been deemed non-compliant, how long they have to fix it. That's what the 1 year is for. If you take the 1 year out, then essentially it leaves it up to the city engineer to decide whatever is reasonable. The 1 year is a protection to the homeowner from having to fix it within 2 weeks. So
Could you add that at the end of that 1 year upon notice? Just so that it reads a lot more clear then to that point of not just 1 year of abandonment, or what do you mean by 1 year, but if you were to say repair 1 year upon notice.
I mean, I think basically we can certainly add that. It just, if you read it, it just says that it shall be removed and replaced within 1 year.
Any other thoughts?
I think I like the 1 year idea, actually. I think it helps to have a deadline. I feel like I understand the reasoning behind it. I think I support it as it is.
I'm comfortable with the language as is, but I'm also going to caveat that with I'm planning to vote no on this overall ordinance for different reasons. So that's why I
Okay.
felt it wasn't super helpful to weigh in, because I'm an overall no.
Well, maybe you can tell us Is it because you don't support the idea of having the wraparound parking and the additional?
I don't support I think that the 10-foot setback is too short. I have a variety of
That's
different
the-
reasons, but yeah, so that's why I chose not to chime in there. I'm an overall no, so helping craft language to something I intend to overall vote no on didn't seem like the right way to go.
Sure, okay. Any other comments or questions on this?
I just have a question. Would Councilman Child be willing to consider the proposed language that Councilmember Murray suggested, with just adding a little clarifying language there that within a year of notice?
Yeah, I would consider that. That would be okay.
That's what I.
Okay, are there any other questions on this? Are we ready for the motion? Yeah. Sure.
Maybe you'd like the city attorney to suggest some language for you?
I would need more input from council. I'm still not sure that it's needed or what we're trying to accomplish. So maybe Councilman Member Murray can give me some more direction on the wording we're looking for.
The project shall be removed and replaced with standard curb cutter, park strip, and sidewalk within 1 year of notice as required by city engineer.
Notice from the city?
Or whoever the notice is coming from to tell the homeowner they need to replace it.
I don't know,
land
that's
use
one of the problems. I don't think we have necessarily a definition of notice.
Notice to property owner?
Francisco,
Who's giving the notice then?
we don't,
No,
it's
I
not a
don't.
defined term in our code.
Not in our code.
Where we've used land use authority before, would that be appropriate here?
No.
No?
That would be the planning commission. So I think the problem is that we have processes that are defined, and by adding that term, it actually adds a lack of clarity. Somebody could dispute, I didn't receive notice, but that's because we don't provide notice as a defined term. I mean, I think from our perspective as staff, the interpretation is very clear, that if it's determined to be abandoned, you have 1 year to fix it.
As opposed to something like 2 weeks, which code enforcement could impose.
Yeah, without the 1 year, it just would be as required by the city engineer. The city engineer could require whatever, and we would fall back to our practice of 2 weeks with every other code enforcement. So I'm just not sure that clarification actually clarifies anything.
What do you think, council?
To me, it clarifies it. I mean, I hear what you're saying, but I'm not sure that average residents are going to affirmatively know or go seek this out, and then say, oh, I must have abandoned this drive approach. I have a year. I think that typically they, kind of as Lloyd was saying, it would be being informed that, that there's a question as to whether there's an abandonment, and then the year notice, referencing notice.
Can I suggest some wording? Existing drive approaches which are deemed abandoned by the city engineer by non-use, which are located as part of an approved development project, shall be removed and replaced with standard gutter, park strip, and sidewalk within 1 year. What that'll do is it will say once Lloyd determines, or whoever the city engineers at the time determines that it's abandoned, which will result in communication with the homeowner, that will give them 1 year from that point.
That adds clarity.
Thank you. If council is amenable to that language, I would entertain a motion.
I had one other question, Mayor.
Okay.
Okay, I guess I just am wanting clarification on the number 3 that starts on line 169, where it's talking about parking areas, and it says parking areas constructed as a permeable parking surface shall only be accessible from a hard surface such as a driveway. And I guess I just wanted to clarify here. I'm wondering, are we considering that the hard surface could be brick pavers?
Yes,
So,
yes.
so the permeable, but pavers are also permeable. So I kind of feel a little confused as to the status of the humble paver here in our code, because they seem to be permeable, but also being described as a hard surface.
Yeah, we clarified that for the definition of paving, it does not include gravel. And I'm trying to find that section here for us, and I haven't been able to find it just yet. If Brad or Lloyd can help me with.
Councilmember, the pavers would not be included as a permeable parking surface based on Lloyd's extensive definition of what our permeable parking surface is. In real life, we do know they are permeable, but the definition that we came up with in ours as a permeable parking surface would not include pavers under Lloyd's new definition.
I don't want to start a debate in council meeting, but there is a phrase
That's what I'm looking for.
on line 135 on page 75, or 134, that says, "or any other reasonable substitute as determined by the city engineer." That substitute, an approved substitute, would be based on that material's ability to pass water through it. So a permeable paver that would allow water to pass through it to the ground below may be deemed an acceptable substitute in my mind. So there's a lot of kinds of pavers, and we can get into the minutia of, is this a paver that is permeable, or is this one that is impermeable? Which would be more comparable to an asphalt surface or a concrete surface, in my mind. So those would fall into the hard surface category.
Okay, so they're kind of hybrid depending on what it is and the circumstance.
There's actually permeable concrete that allows water to pass through it too. So there's a lot of flavors of materials that can qualify in both of these categories.
Does that answer your question? It does. Great. Any other questions before we move to a motion? And if we could refer to your definition, to your language, if the council wants to move in that direction. So if you're ready, council, let's have a motion.
Mayor, I would like to make a motion that we accept the land use code text amendments for paved parking surfaces.
With the addition of the language.
With the addition of the language
From my attorney.
as clarified by our city attorney.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
No?
Motion carries. Thank you. All right, and now we appreciate your patience, Zoe. We're to the item where we're going to discuss the approval of a liquor license for St. Olaf's Catholic School, and Mr. Astorga, will turn that over to you.
Thank you. So St. Olave's at 1793 South Orchard Drive has an annual auction. Is that correct? And they come before us every year asking for a single event permit for them to be able to provide alcohol during this event. And based on the city code, all of our beer and alcohol license require approval by the city council. That's called the local consent that then they have to bring to the Utah Department of Beverage Services, DABS. They're no longer DABC. They dropped that. This item starts on page 83. We found no objection as to why we should not approve their temporary liquor license.
Thank you. And I told Zoe that we'd make it easy. If we have any questions, we can ask her, but are there any questions on this or anything the council, any comments?
I would just comment that I've been to this auction before, and it's an awesome event. So thank you for all your work that you're doing to make this a successful event for the students and families of the St. Olaf's community.
Thank you. We're super excited. And if any of you would like to come, we would love it.
Thanks for the invitation.
Yes.
Sorry, when is your event?
It's on the 26th of April this year. Yeah.
Thank you. Any questions?
Mayor, motion to approve?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, and now we will turn the time over to Mr. Cheney, our engineer, and thanks for your patience. We've talked more about concrete than we usually do tonight and different surfaces, but we're here to consider approval of the second extension of the 2023 concrete replacement contract.
Thank you, Mayor. Tonight for the council's consideration, we have an extension of the existing contract with JMR Construction for a concrete replacement program, and just for maybe Beth's benefit, we do a considerable amount of maintenance work every year that is not only in preparation for street overlays or reconstructions, but also involves repair work for many of the city departments. And this contract gives us a vehicle to complete those repairs. JMR Construction's had this contract many times over the past 3 or 4 decades. And we're very familiar with their crews and their work. And recently, we have included an extension clause in many of our maintenance contracts, and this concrete contract is one that we've used that frequently. It includes 2 opportunities to extend the contract, and we're asking for the council's approval for this second extension. So this would be the final extension for this particular contract with a requested increase of 5% to the pricing that was approved last year. The construction industry over the last few years has faced a lot of pressure. There's been a lot of increase in costs, and again, this year we're seeing that the supplier that JMR uses is asking for an additional $9 per yard that's just for concrete, and that doesn't include some of the other add-on charges that come every time you order concrete. So we feel like the 5% is justified, and we would ask for your approval of the extension of this contract.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for the good work you do around town for us. Any questions from the council on this?
Mayor, I make a motion to approve the second extension of the 2023 concrete replacement contract with JMR.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Excellent. Okay, and now, is there a motion to move to a closed session?
Mayor, I'd make a motion that we move to a closed session to discuss pending litigation, acquisition of property, and/or the competency of an individual.
And this will be a roll call vote. Oh,
Do we need to
I'm
second
so
that?
sorry. Yes, is there a
Second.
second? Thank you. Thank you.
Councilmember Child.
Aye.
Councilmember Bradshaw,
Aye.
Councilmember Murray,
Aye.
and Councilmember Price Hewish.
Aye.
We are adjourned to a closed session. Thank you.